Everything you know about World War II is a lie. Well, not everything, but a disturbing amount of what you learned in school, saw in movies, or heard from your grandfather. Pure propaganda. 80 years later, we're still repeating their lies like gospel truth. I'm talking about myths that make America look perfect, the British unshakable, and the Germans like cartoon villains. Today, we're burning it all down. 40 myths, 40 lies. By the end, you'll never watch a war movie the same way again. 1. That iconic poster woman in a red bandana, flexing her bicep. We can do it. That's Rosie the Riveter, right? Dead wrong. That poster had nothing to do with Rosie. Westinghouse created it for their own workers, displayed it for 2 weeks in February 1943, then forgot about it. The real Rosie was a completely different image by Norman Rockwell. In the 1980s, a poster company rediscovered it and mass-produced it as a feminism symbol. We've been living with a corporate ad from the 80s, pretending to be empowerment from the 40s. The irony? The woman quit after 2 weeks. She wanted to play cello. The most famous World War II image wasn't even from World War II. 2. June 6, 1944. D-Day. That's when America won World War II, right? Here's the truth. By D-Day, Germany had already lost. The real turning point? Stalingrad. Winter 1942-43. The Soviets broke the Wehrmacht's back a year and a half before American boots touched French sand. By Normandy, 80% of German casualties had already happened on the Eastern Front. But acknowledging that means admitting the Soviets did the heavy lifting. Hollywood gives us Saving Private Ryan instead of the frozen hellscape. D-Day wasn't about turning the tide, it was about making sure the Soviets didn't take all of Europe. We showed up to claim our share, not achieve it. 3. Hitler, evil genius. Military mastermind, brilliant strategist. All lies. The Nazis needed their leader to seem genius. The Allies needed to claim they defeated a genius, not an incompetent corporal who got lucky early. Reality? Hitler ignored his generals constantly, started a two-front war Germany couldn't afford, declared war on America for no reason, refused tactical retreats, causing massive casualties, obsessed over wonder weapons instead of reliable equipment, and micromanaged from a bunker hundreds of miles away. His early victories were his generals winning, despite him. Once Hitler overruled them more, Germany lost more. By 1944, German officers prayed for his death because he was the Allies' best weapon. Both sides kept the myth alive. 4. French military history, we surrender. That joke has lasted 80 years. Let's talk numbers. France lost 92,000 soldiers in 6 weeks in 1940. Britain lost 11,000 before evacuating at Dunkirk, and we call them heroes. France fought, bled, and died. They were outmaneuvered by a risky German strategy that could have failed spectacularly. This myth was deliberately spread by the British to make Dunkirk look heroic instead of a panicked retreat, and by Americans during Iraq when France refused to join us. Remember Freedom Fries? That was 2003 propaganda using 1940 as ammunition. The French resistance? The 210,000 French soldiers who died total? Erased by a punchline. Even Rommel said they fought courageously. 5. December 7th, 1941. The surprise attack that shocked America. Except it wasn't surprising. The US had been tracking Japanese movements for months. We'd broken their diplomatic codes. We knew an attack was imminent. Washington sent multiple warnings to Pearl Harbor. Some arrived after the attack because they were sent by commercial telegram to save money. Did Roosevelt let it happen? No. But did the military ignore warning signs because they assumed Japan would hit the Philippines, not Hawaii? Absolutely. The complete surprise narrative served two purposes: made the attack seem more villainous and excused military failure to prepare. After the war, everyone focused on Japanese treachery instead of American complacency. 8 battleships damaged because someone assumed imminent meant next month. Probably. 6. Jet fighters, rockets, supertanks. The Nazis were high-tech supervillains with science we couldn't match, right? Propaganda, gold. Both sides wanted you to believe this. The truth? Most German equipment was overcomplicated, unreliable, and impossible to mass-produce. The Tiger tank? Impressive when it wasn't in the repair shop, which was 70% of the time. America pumped out reliable Shermans by the thousands. Sure, the Sherman couldn't match a Tiger one-on-one, but we'd send 5 Shermans for every Tiger, and 4 would still run while the Tiger broke down roadside. The V-2 rocket killed more slave laborers building it than enemy soldiers. The Me-262 jet? Constantly grounded. Germany's real advantage early wasn't technology, it was tactics and surprise. Soviet reliability and American mass production beat German complexity every time. 7. Picture it. Fanatical Japanese pilots smiling as they dive into ships, honored to die for the emperor. Japanese propaganda wanted Americans terrified. The reality was darker. Yes, some early kamikazes volunteered young officers swept up in honor culture. But as the war dragged on, volunteering became less voluntary. Pilots were given a choice: volunteer for special attacks or be labeled a coward. Your family would be shamed, you'd be ostracized. Some were simply ordered without pretense of choice. We have their letters, their diaries. Many didn't want to die, they were scared. They hated the waste. One wrote, "I am just going to die without doing anything." Some deliberately missed targets. American propaganda kept the willing fanatic myth alive to justify firebombing Japanese cities. 8. The big one. The myth that starts arguments at every dinner table. The atomic bomb saved 1 million American lives by preventing an invasion. You've heard it. It's gospel in America. It's also the most successful propaganda lie of the entire war. By August 1945, Japan was already trying to surrender through the Soviet Union. Their only condition? Keep the emperor. We said no. Unconditional surrender only. Then we dropped the bombs. Japan surrendered. We let them keep the emperor anyway. So what was the real reason? Justify the $2 billion Manhattan Project expense. Impress the Soviets the Cold War was starting. End it before Soviets invaded and split Japan like Germany. The million lives saved number? Made up in 1947. Actual estimates were around 40,000 casualties. 9. 300,000 British soldiers trapped on a beach. Certain death, then civilian boats appear like magic. Christopher Nolan made a beautiful movie about it. Dunkirk Spirit, British civilians in little boats. It was a catastrophic retreat where Britain lost all its heavy equipment and barely escaped annihilation. But Churchill was a propaganda master. He reframed disaster as miracle. Suddenly, running away became triumph of British resilience. The evacuation itself was impressive. Getting 338,000 soldiers off that beach was remarkable logistics. But it happened because France was collapsing, the British army was surrounded, and Germany could have wiped them out if Hitler hadn't mysteriously halted his tanks for 3 days. Britain got lucky, spun it brilliantly, and we've been calling it the Dunkirk spirit ever since. 80 years later, we're making Oscar-nominated movies about a retreat. 10. The Wehrmacht? They were just soldiers. The evil stuff? That was all the SS. This is the Clean Wehrmacht myth, and it's one of the most dangerous pieces of propaganda to survive. Where did it come from? German generals after the war. They wanted to publish memoirs, consult for NATO, and avoid prison. So they created a narrative. We were professional soldiers. Atrocities were all SS. We knew nothing. The Americans and British bought it because we needed West Germany against the Soviet Union. Admitting the regular army was complicit meant we were now allied with war criminals. Much easier to pretend they were innocent. The reality? The Wehrmacht participated in mass executions, rounded up Jews, burned villages, and committed atrocities across Eastern Europe. We have the photographs, the letters home, the orders signed by regular army officers. 11. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. Brilliant tactician, chivalrous opponent, not really a Nazi, connected to the plot to kill Hitler, forced to commit suicide, tragic figure, almost all myth. Yes, Rommel knew about the July 20th plot, but didn't actively participate. When it failed, Hitler offered suicide instead of trial to preserve his reputation. But the good Nazi image, created by the Allies, especially the British, we needed to explain why he kept beating us in North Africa. Easier to say he was genius than we were incompetent. After the war, his son worked with a British author to sanitize his image. Suddenly, Rommel never mistreated POWs, never supported the Nazis false. He benefited enormously from Hitler's favor and opposed the regime. The truth? Rommel was a talented general who fought for a genocidal regime and benefited from it. 12. We shall fight on the beaches. The speech that saved Britain, right? Except most British people never heard it, not live. Churchill gave that speech in Parliament to about 400 MPs. The BBC didn't broadcast it. The famous recording everyone knows? He recorded it 9 years later for a documentary. During the war, an actor, Norman Shelley, sometimes impersonated Churchill on radio because Churchill was too busy. Some of those Churchill speeches you've heard, not even him. Did Churchill's real speeches matter? Sure, his rhetoric was powerful. But the myth that his words alone saved Britain ignores everything else. The RAF winning the Battle of Britain, American Lend-Lease, the English Channel being hard to cross, Hitler getting distracted by Russia. But stirring speeches save democracy is better propaganda. 13. Here's a myth so pervasive it's in textbooks. Polish cavalry charged German tanks with lances and sabers in 1939. The ultimate symbol of obsolete tactics meeting modern warfare. Never happened. Not once. The story comes from one incident. Polish cavalry encountered German infantry, charged successfully with sabers, but then German armored cars showed up and forced retreat. Italian correspondents with the Germans turned this into Poles charging tanks for propaganda to make Germany look invincible and Poland pathetically outdated. The myth served everyone. Germans looked superior. Soviets justified invading to protect them. Western allies excused not helping. The truth? Polish cavalry were mobile infantry. They rode horses to battle, then fought on foot with modern weapons. They fought fiercely and effectively, but nobody cared. The image was too perfect. 85 years later, people still believe it. 14. Hitler has only got one ball. British soldiers sang it. It became accepted fact. Even history books mentioned it. There's zero evidence, none. It comes from a British propaganda song to mock Hitler, and somehow we decided it was medical fact. His doctor's records? 2 testicles. Soviet autopsy? 2 testicles, allegedly. But here's the thing about propaganda. It doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if it sticks. And school children singing about Hitler's anatomy stuck better than any factual pamphlet. We wanted Hitler to be physically abnormal because it explained his evil. If he was deformed, incomplete, less than a man, his monstrousness made sense. We could other him. The truth that evil looks completely ordinary is much more terrifying. But propaganda doesn't deal in terrifying truths. It deals in comfortable lies. 15. Sure, the Nazi experiments were horrific, but at least the data helped medical science. No, it didn't. Almost none of it did. The hypothermia experiments? Sloppy methodology, inconsistent data, worthless. The high-altitude experiments? Poorly designed. The twin studies? Mengele's sadistic curiosity, not science. Modern medical ethics boards have repeatedly concluded Nazi research was so badly conducted, so unscientific, and so contaminated by sadism that it's worthless. So why does this myth persist? Because it's comforting. If those horrors led to advances, there's meaning in the suffering, a silver lining. But there wasn't. It was torture disguised as research, evil, without even the excuse of results. The myth also lets people justify wanting to use that data. If we don't, they died for nothing. But they didn't die for science, they were murdered. 16. Hollywood loves this. Americans desperately racing to crack Japanese codes before it's too late. Finally, just before Midway, we crack it. Victory ensues. Reality? We broke Japan's main diplomatic code, Purple, in 1940 before Pearl Harbor. We'd been reading their mail for over a year. The naval code, JN-25, was partially broken before Midway, but we'd been chipping away for months. Midway wasn't a sudden breakthrough, it was the culmination of steady intelligence work. But we were reading their messages the whole time, doesn't make exciting movies. So Hollywood invented the last-minute breakthrough narrative. The British did the same with Enigma. Bletchley Park was already reading German messages early in the war. Both sides benefited. Intelligence agencies looked like miracle workers, and it explained why we kept winning. Also, it hid how much we actually knew. 17. Never was so much owed by so many to so few. The RAF saved Britain by destroying the Luftwaffe forever. The Battle of Britain was real. The RAF did hold off the Luftwaffe, but did it break German air power? Not even close. Germany lost about 1,900 aircraft. That sounds devastating until you realize Germany produced 3,700 aircraft in 1940 alone. They replaced losses in months. The real reason Hitler stopped bombing Britain? He was pivoting to Russia. The Battle of Britain ended because Hitler got bored and moved on. Not because Germany couldn't continue, but British propaganda needed a victory. After Dunkirk, after France fell, they desperately needed to have won something. So the Battle of Britain became Churchill's finest hour. The turning point. It was important. It kept Britain in the war. But broke the Luftwaffe? They fought for 4 more years. 18. German spies, cold, efficient, everywhere. The Abwehr, Germany's terrifying intelligence machine. In reality, German intelligence was a clown show. Every single German spy, Britain captured all of them, either got executed or turned into double agents. Not some, all. Britain ran the entire German spy network in England. Every report Berlin received from Britain was fake. Operation Fortitude, the D-Day deception? It worked because German intelligence believed their imaginary spies telling them nonsense about fake armies. Germany's code-breaking? Terrible. They never seriously tried to break Allied codes. They assumed their own codes were unbreakable. The Abwehr was more interested in internal politics. Admiral Canaris may have been actively sabotaging Germany. He was eventually executed for treason. So why the myth? Because Hollywood needs competent villains. James Bond can't fight bumbling idiots. Also, it excused Allied failures early in the war. 19. April 1945. Allied soldiers walk into the camps. Finally, the world knows. This is the lie that lets an entire generation off the hook. Everyone knew. Everyone. The camps weren't hidden in remote forests, they were often near towns and cities. Local Germans worked there, supplied them, smelled them. The trains passed through populated areas. Prisoners did forced labor in public view. Allied governments knew by 1942. Intelligence reports detailed the extermination camps. The Polish resistance sent detailed information. Jewish refugees testified. The press reported it, though often buried on back pages. So why didn't we do more? Because we didn't care enough. Bombing the railways to Auschwitz might have saved thousands, but it wasn't a military priority. Refugee ships were turned away. Immigration quotas stayed closed. After the war, the "we didn't know" myth served multiple purposes. 20. Dresden. Beautiful cultural city. Hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians incinerated for nothing. Neo-Nazis and Soviet propaganda loved to scream about the firebombing of Dresden. It was an innocent cultural city. Hundreds of thousands died. No, Dresden was a major rail hub transporting troops to the Eastern Front. It was a legitimate military target. The death toll was tragic, around 25,000. But that is nowhere near the 200,000 figure invented by Joseph Goebbels. The Nazis inflated the numbers to create a victim narrative. By repeating the Dresden myth, you are literally repeating Nazi propaganda designed to create a false equivalence with the Holocaust. 21. The Manhattan Project, America's biggest secret, locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Not really. The Soviets knew about the atom bomb before Harry Truman did. Stalin had spies everywhere. Klaus Fuchs, a physicist on the team, was photocopying designs and sending them to Moscow since 1941. We pretended it was a secret to maintain the illusion of American security. When the Soviets tested their bomb in 1949, the US acted shocked. How did they get it so fast? We gave it to them. The most secure project in history was actually a sieve, but admitting that makes the FBI look incompetent. 22. The Tiger tank, the ultimate predator. Invincible armor, big gun, also a complete pile of junk. The Tiger was an engineering disaster. It was too heavy for bridges. It guzzled gas like a jet, and the transmission broke if you looked at it wrong. In Russia, half of all Tiger losses weren't from enemy fire, they were from mechanical breakdowns. The crews had to blow up their own tanks and walk home. German propaganda sold the image of the invincible machine. American soldiers believed it because it was scary. But in a war of logistics, a broken tank is just a 60-ton paperweight. 23. The Soviets only won by throwing bodies at German machine guns. We love to say it. Quantity has a quality all its own. This is Nazi racism disguised as history. The Germans claimed they were beaten by mindless Asiatic hordes because they couldn't admit they were outsmarted by inferior Slavs. By 1943, the Soviet Red Army was a sophisticated, modern machine using deep battle tactics that were superior to the German blitzkrieg. They didn't just outnumber the Germans. They outplanned, outmaneuvered, and outfought them. Attributing their victory to mindless numbers disrespects the most effective army of the war. 24. George Patton, the American God of War. The movies depict him as the man who single-handedly saved Europe. Reality check. Patton was a good tactician, but a terrible strategist. He constantly outran his supply lines, leaving his army without fuel, then blamed his bosses. His famous rescue of Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge? General Bradley had already planned it. Patton just shouted about it the loudest. He was a PR genius who carried ivory-handled pistols to look cool for the cameras. We love him because he fits the cowboy general archetype, not because he won the war. 25. The Maginot Line. That idiotic wall the stupid French built that the Germans just drove around. Actually, that was the point. The Maginot Line was designed to force the Germans to go through Belgium, where the French army was waiting. It worked perfectly. The Germans went through Belgium. The French lost because their mobile army moved too slowly, not because the wall failed. The fortifications actually held out longer than the rest of France. But the French are idiots is a funnier story than the French strategy worked, but their operational tempo was too slow. 26. The V-2 rocket, Hitler's superweapon that nearly won the war. Technical marvel? Yes. Good weapon? Absolutely not. The V-2 program cost more than the Manhattan Project but killed fewer people than a bad air raid. In fact, the V-2 killed more people, making it slave laborers in underground factories, than it killed in London. It was a terror weapon with zero military value. Hitler wasted massive resources on wonder weapons that couldn't hit a target, while his soldiers were running out of rifles and socks. It was propaganda engineering, not military engineering. 27. Japanese soldiers, samurai warriors who'd rather die than surrender. Every single one. While many did fight to the death, thousands tried to surrender later in the war. The problem? American soldiers stopped taking prisoners. We have reports of Marines shooting Japanese soldiers with their hands up because they might have a grenade or simply for revenge. Japanese command told their troops, "The Americans will torture and kill you." And then the Americans proved them right. The fight to the death myth absolves us of the fact that we often didn't give them a choice. 28. The greatest generation defeated the Nazis, came home, and built a fair, equal America for everyone. That is the movie version. In reality, black soldiers came home to Jim Crow laws. Black veterans were lynched in the South while wearing their uniforms. The GI Bill, which built the American middle class, was deliberately rigged to exclude black families from buying homes in the suburbs. We fought the Nazis with a segregated army. The civil rights movement didn't happen because of the war. It happened 20 years later because people like Rosa Parks got tired of waiting for the freedom they supposedly fought for. 29. Rosie the Riveter proved women could do anything. Then the war ended and equality arrived. Right? During the war, Rosie the Riveter proved women could do men's work. But when the men came back, the government launched a massive propaganda campaign to force women back into the kitchen. They fired women from factories, closed daycare centers, and filled magazines with articles about the joy of cooking. The 1950s happy housewife wasn't a natural return to normal. It was social engineering. The economy needed jobs for veterans, so they guilt-tripped independent women into becoming domestic servants. It set women's rights back by 30 years. 30. German U-boats prowling the Atlantic. The wolf packs. Britain days away from starvation. Movies make it look like German U-boats almost starved Britain into surrender. The wolf packs. In reality, the U-boats failed. By mid-1943, the Allies had cracked the German naval codes and invented better sonar. Being a U-boat sailor became the deadliest job in the war. 75% of them died. It was a suicide mission. They didn't almost win. After 1943, they were just steel coffins sinking to the bottom of the Atlantic. We hyped them up to make the victory seem more perilous than it actually was. 31. He didn't escape to Argentina. He isn't on a moon base. He didn't live to be 90. Adolf Hitler shot himself in a bunker on April 30th, 1945. His dentist identified his teeth. The Soviets have his jawbone in a box in Moscow. DNA tests confirmed it in 2009. The stories of escape were started by Stalin to confuse the West and kept alive by the History Channel because Hitler hunting shows get high ratings. He died a coward's death in a hole in the ground. Stop giving him a cooler ending than he deserves. 32. Hitler bombs London. Break their spirit. Make them beg for peace. Genius plan. It did the opposite. It made them angry. This is a universal rule of war. Strategic bombing of civilians never breaks morale. It hardens it. When we bombed Germany, they fought harder. When we bombed Japan, they fought harder. The Blitz didn't almost break Britain, it united them. But generals on both sides kept ordering city bombings because they needed to justify their massive Air Force budgets. We slaughtered civilians for 5 years to prove a theory that was wrong on day one. 33. Nazis searching for the Holy Grail. Occult rituals, black magic. Raiders of the Lost Ark was a documentary, basically. Indiana Jones fights Nazis looking for the Ark of the Covenant. We love the idea of occult Nazis obsessed with black magic. In reality, Himmler was into it, but Hitler thought it was stupid. He called it nonsense. The Nazis weren't dark wizards, they were boring bureaucrats. The Holocaust wasn't a blood ritual. It was an industrial process managed by accountants and trained schedulers. Making them mystical makes them seem like cartoon villains. The scary truth is that they were rational, modern men who used spreadsheets to commit genocide. 34. If only Hitler hadn't invaded Russia. If only they'd built more jets. We love playing what if. If Hitler hadn't invaded Russia, if they had the jet fighter sooner, we love what if history. But the truth is, Germany lost the moment they started the war. Their economy was smaller than Britain's. Their oil supplies were tiny. They had no navy. Once they declared war on the Soviet Union and America, it was math. You cannot beat the 3 biggest industrial powers on Earth with cool uniforms and a few good tanks. The outcome wasn't a close call. It was an inevitable crushing by superior logistics. 35. Back-to-back World War champs. America saved Europe. Twice. Americans love to claim we saved Europe. Timeline check. The war started in 1939. America joined in late 1941. D-Day was 1944. For nearly 3 years, the Soviets and British did the dying while America got rich selling them weapons. By the time we landed in France, the Germans were already broken. American supplies and trucks were crucial, yes, but we didn't save the day like the cavalry. We jumped into the fight in the fourth quarter when the other team was already exhausted. 36. May 8th, 1945. Victory in Europe. The war ends. Everyone celebrates and goes home. We celebrate VE Day as the end. Everyone kissed and went home. False. The fighting stopped, but the dying continued. Millions of ethnic Germans were violently expelled from Eastern Europe. 500,000 died. Civil wars erupted in Greece and China. Anti-colonial wars started in Vietnam and Indonesia. Starvation killed thousands in 1946. The clean ending is a myth to make us feel good. For the people living in the rubble of Europe, 1945 wasn't peace. It was just a different kind of hell. 37. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor gets bombed. America instantly unites as one. The myth says America instantly united after the attack. One nation, one goal. In reality, racism tore the country apart. We threw innocent Japanese Americans into camps. White workers went on strike to protest working next to black people in factories. Politicians used the war to crush labor unions. The country was terrified, angry, and divided. The unity narrative was created later to make us nostalgic for a time when everyone supposedly got along. We were just as divided then as we are now. We just had a common enemy to distract us. 38. America versus Germany. A desperate race for the atomic bomb. Whoever gets it first wins everything. We were in a race for the bomb. No, we weren't. Germany wasn't even close. They chased away their best Jewish physicists, like Einstein. They didn't have the money. They decided nuclear physics was Jewish science and defunded it. When Allied scientists found the Nazi atomic files in 1945, they laughed. The Germans were still trying to build a basic reactor while we were testing bombs. We pretended it was a race to justify the billions we spent. You can't have a race when the other guy hasn't even tied his shoes. 39. We were the good guys fighting evil. Clean hands. Moral superiority. We fought the right way. Wrong. The Allies committed plenty of war crimes, we just didn't prosecute ourselves. We bombed civilians in Dresden and Tokyo. We shot prisoners of war in Sicily. Soviet soldiers assaulted millions of women in Berlin. The difference between us and them isn't that we were saints, it's that our cause was just. Defeating Hitler was necessary, but don't pretend our hands stayed clean. War makes monsters out of everyone. We just had better PR. 40. Never again. World War II taught humanity to reject violence and prevent future wars. World War II taught us to prevent war. Did it? Since 1945, we have had the Korean War, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Gaza. Shall I continue? We founded the UN to stop conflict, and then immediately started the Cold War. The only thing World War II taught us was how to kill people more efficiently. Never again is just a slogan we say on anniversaries while we sell weapons to the next dictator. The biggest lie is that we learned anything at all. So there you have it. 40 myths, 80 years of propaganda. If they lied about the biggest event in human history, what are they lying to you about right now? Don't accept the comfortable narrative. Question everything. Now, I want to start a war in the comments. Which one of these myths pissed you off the most? Or which one are you convinced is actually true? Go ahead, scroll down and prove me wrong, or tell me which lie you're sick of hearing. I'll be reading the replies. And finally, subscribe. Because if you made it this far, you're clearly someone who wants the truth, not the comfortable lie. Welcome to the real history. See you in the next video.